Hi, first graders. It's Mrs. Lopresti, and we're here again this week to work on some reading together. Remember that we've been going on some reading adventures, and every book that you read can take you on a new adventure to a new place. Last week, we worked on reading this book, Iris and Walter, and I'm going to continue to read this book this week. But I'm going to ask you to choose your own book at home. You can use a physical hard copy book. You can use a book that you have on your Kindle from the library. You can use a book from Raz Kids or from Epic Reading. So in my suitcase last week, we used our tools. Get ready to take a sneak peek and keep track of where and when. We even used the tool Predict What Might Happen Next. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about how we can learn to retell the important parts of a story. When I want to remember a book, a good way to remember a book forever is to tell someone else about it. Just like when you go on a big trip, you come back from your trip and it's very exciting, so you want to tell your family and your friends all about your adventure that you had. And if you're really lucky, you have some photographs to help you remember all the important parts of your trip. Well, when we read, there's a trick you can use to help you remember all the important parts of the book. The trick is to use some Post-it notes. Now, you can use sticky Post-it notes, or if you don't have any Post-it notes at home, another good idea is to just cut up some small pieces of paper, cut up an index card, just something that could be a placeholder in your book for a part that you want to remember to talk about when you do your story retell. So if I look here at Iris and Walter and I open up the story, I remember at the beginning when Miss Cherry tells the class that they are about to go on a field trip. I'm going to mark this with my Post-it so that I'll remember this during my retell. Now, I like to write a little bit what I plan on saying during my retell, and you might like to do that too. Then I'll keep going through the book. Oh, and I want to tell my reader, my fellow reader, that they go home and tell their family. So what can I do on this page? That's right, I can put another Post-it here to help me remember that I want to retell this part. It's an important part. Here they're going on the bus ride, getting all ready to go. Now, I don't want to retell every single word in the story, but I do want to tell that Miss Cherry went over the safety rules and then they were on their way. If we retold the whole story, it would be too long. No one would really be sitting still long enough to hear everything we said. So we're only going to talk about the most important parts. Oh, and I think this is an important part. I want to put a Post-it on the page where the children realize that in the crowded aquarium, there's another child with the exact same shirt as Walter, because doesn't that end up being important later in the book? It does. That's what I think too. So I'll do that. Oh my goodness. And throughout the story, I do want to say that they saw all different kinds of animals in the aquarium, different kinds of sea creatures, and Walter's favorite was the coral reef. So I'm just going to put my Post-it note here because I can't read the whole story. I'm only retelling the most important parts. This is an important part. Boys and girls, wouldn't you say this piece is important? When Iris is holding someone's hand and she thinks it's Walter, and then she turns around and it's not Walter at all. I think that's a really important part. So I'm going to put a Post-it note right here. She says, I'm not holding Walter's hand. Who is this? And it's that boy Nick, who was also lost. Then Iris tells Miss Cherry, and Miss Cherry and Iris go looking for Walter. So I'll put another Post-it note there. Let's see, as we keep going through the book, they're looking for Walter. And finally, they find him right in front of the coral reef. And Walter does not even realize that he was lost. How silly. And then, of course, I'll retell the very end of the story now that all the action is done. But I will summarize it and just say that they finished their trip and they were happy they found Walter. And you see how I've used my Post-it notes? Now, if you were using colored paper because you don't have Post-it notes, it would look very much the same. I had trouble getting one here. You would just kind of put it in the page. Put it right in like that. And that's kind of nice because it sticks up. It reminds you to turn to that page, almost like a little bookmark, and you can write on them. It doesn't matter if this is construction paper or just a scrap of any kind of paper you have in the house. It could be a cut up index card, anything that works for you. Right, friends? Now I would like you to choose a book that you've been reading and go ahead and mark it up for all the important parts that you would use to retell the story. And later in the week, I'll see you again, and that's when we'll talk about actually doing the retell. So long.